That was also. I don't even know if I have one. She meant
You were there during water projects when there was no water, and bringing equipment to drill wells and set up water systems.
Problems with blood chemistry and things like that.
The young mother set her foot on the path of life. "Is the way long?" she asked. And her guide said, "Yes, and the way is hard. And you will be old before you reach the end of it, but the end will be better than the beginning." Anything could be better than these years. So she played with her children and gathered flowers for them along the way, and bathed with them in the streams, and the sun shone on them, and life was good, and the young mother cried, "Nothing will ever be lovelier than this." Then night came with the storm, and the path was dark, and the children shook with fear and cold, and the mother drew them close and covered them with her mantle. And the children said, "O mother, we are not afraid, for you are near, and no harm can come." And the mother said, "This is better than the brightest of days, for I have taught my children courage." And the morning came, and there was a hill ahead, and the children climbed and grew weary, and the mother was tired, but at all times she said to her children, "A little patience, and we are there." So the children climbed, and when they reached the top, they said, "We could not have done it without you, mother." And the mother, when she lay down at night, looked up at the stars and said, "This is a better day than the last, for my children have learned fortitude in the face of difficulty. Yesterday I gave them courage, today I have given them strength." And the next day came strange clouds that darkened the earth, clouds of war and evil and hate, and the children groped and stumbled. And the mother said, "Look up, lift your eyes to the light." And the children looked and saw above the clouds an eternal presence, and it guided them beyond the darkness. And that night the mother said, "This is the best day of all, for I have shown my children a higher power." And the days went on, and the months and the years, and the mother grew old, and she was small and bent. But her children were strong and tall and walked with courage. And when the way was hard, they helped their mother. And when the way was rough, they lifted her, for she was light as a feather. And at last they came to a hill, and beyond the hill they could see a shining road and golden gates flung wide. And the mother said, "I have reached the end of my journey. And now I know that the end is better than the beginning, for my children can walk alone, and their children after them." And the children said, "You will always walk with us, mother, even when you have gone through the gates." And they stood and watched her as she went on alone, and the gates closed after her. And they said, "We cannot see her, but she is with us. A mother like ours is more than a memory. She is and will always be a living presence." I'm honored to be with all of you today as we come together to remember an incredible woman, Annette, Rayman, Chana Riva Bat Asher Vitsipa. I never had the pleasure of meeting Annette, but through some time talking with the family, I've come to understand that she took great pride in being a loving wife, a strong mother and grandmother, a devoted sister, and a very, very loyal friend, a true living presence. And in the end, Annette became everyone's mother, a matriarch of her friends, of long-distance relatives, her children's friends, and the greater community. Family was her center. Ledor vador, as we say in Judaism, from generation to generation. She believed in passing down traditions and rituals to her children and grandchildren. And even though she could be strong-willed, it came from a place of love and wanting what was best. And I was told she often knew what was best. Sometimes that meant cleaning out your refrigerator when you didn't want it cleaned, or waiting to eat her own dinner to ensure you had enough. Every moment was an opportunity to help, to show love, to give. In just a few moments, we're going to hear from loved ones who will share memories with us, and it will be so meaningful to have them paint a picture of her life. Let us now, for a moment, though, look to the brown books that can be found in front of you. And we look to pages 13 and 14, which contain Psalm 23, as we connect Annette's life to the 4,000-year-old tradition of the people Israel. Cantor Beth will chant this powerful psalm, a text that reminds us no matter how difficult life is and how painful loss can be, that God in our community is with us every step of the way to help us traverse the dark places that can seem as though they are overtaking us. Pages 13 and 14, Psalm 23.
מזמור לדוד, אדוני רואי לא אחסר, בינות דשא ירביצני, על מי מנוחות ינחלני, נפשי ישובה, ינחני במעגלי צדק למען שמו. גם כי אלך בגיא צלמוות, לא אירא רע, כי אתה עמדי. שבטך משענתך עמה ינחמוני. תערוך לפניי שולחן נגד צורריי. תשענת בשמן ראשי, כוסי רוויה, אך טוב החסד ירדיפוני כל ימי חיי, ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך
Join in with me in the English, the top of 14. Adonai is my shepherd, I shall not want. God makes me lie down in green pastures, leads me beside still waters, and restores my soul. You lead me in right paths for the sake of your name. Even when I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You have set a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of God forever. The traditional verses from the book of Proverbs, known as Eshet Chayil, portrays a beautiful picture of a woman who is the head of her family. And while for some the poem portrays an old-fashioned notion of what family life was like, the themes to be taken from the verses transcend time and place. And as Mark, Lori, and Leslie told me a few days ago, Mom did it all and lived life to its fullest. So it's in that spirit that I share with you a version of Eshet Chayil that I think speaks to the woman who we honor today. A mother of generations, a woman of valor, an Eshet Chayil. She is precious in the gifts that she gave to her family. Her children have found trust and truth in these gifts. We follow in patterns that she taught. She is robed in strength and dignity, and she smiles at the future. She opens her mouth with wisdom, and the teachings of kindness is on her tongue. We benefit and learn from her wisdom. May she always be credited for the fruit of her labor and her achievements. May she live on in glory. Amen. There's a custom in Judaism that when a loved one dies, that you tear your shirt to visibly show you are in mourning, as well as to allow a physical release of your emotions. Today, most often we wear a ribbon instead of tearing our shirts, and the family will perform the ritual of the tearing at the graveside. But 1,000 years ago, someone came to the great Jewish philosopher Maimonides and asked if you could re-stitch the shirt after it was torn and after the mourning period had passed, because back then they only owned a few pieces of clothing. Maimonides, in his wisdom, answered, yes, it can be made like it was before, but the stitching must be visible on the outside to everyone. Because, said Maimonides, your heart will slowly heal, but there will always be a mark. It's a beautiful lesson and a wonderful wish for this family. To Mark, Lori, Leslie, Tyler, Emily, Jake, Eli, Dee Dee, Steve, and Irv, it's my hope and prayer that the support of your community and friends will help you slowly heal the tear in your hearts, and that through the love and memories that you will always cherish, you are able to move forward together honoring the values and teachings that your mom, your grandmother, your sister so deeply transmitted to you. And we are honored to hear a little bit about those teachings and memories from various family members now. It's an honor to call up Emily, representing the grandchildren.
Hi. I'd like to say a few words on behalf of Annette's grandchildren, my brother Jake, cousins Tyler and Eli. In life, there are few individuals able to make a large impact on the people around them. Our grandmother was one of those people. To her, family was anyone she met. We have heard countless stories of how Grandma had helped people who were near strangers to her. A great example of this occurred last summer when, after graduating college, a bunch of my friends from Connecticut traveled across the country. She insisted that they stay at her house for a night and made them breakfast in the morning. She didn't know the boys, but she still gave them her hospitality, asking for nothing in return. That was just the type of person that Grandma was. She would travel across the country to see me in a play or to watch Jake in a football game. She was always there to support Tyler during sporting events and Eli during all of his endeavors. She was the perfect grandmother, always ready to greet us with a smile and a hug. She was always there for us when we needed her, and even when we didn't know that we did. She traveled the world with us. She went ziplining with us in Costa Rica and walked all around Italy with us. From Alaska to Israel, she was always there to take us on amazing adventures. Even when she would come spend time with us in Connecticut, she would make each visit as amazing as she could. She would go with us to New York or come visit me at college. She was always so supportive of everything that her grandchildren would do and was our biggest cheerleader. Even after she got sick, she still insisted on trying to take care of us. She was and will continue to be my inspiration. She lived every day to the fullest and cared more about the people she loved than herself. I would be honored to be even half the woman that she was. Thank you for everything you have done for your grandchildren. I will never forget your warmth and the way that you would light up when one of us would walk into the room. We will never forget all of the lessons that you taught us and the love that you gave us. We love you, Grandma, and miss you. Oh, and one more thing. Can the last person in the chapel please turn the lights off? Grandma would have a cow if she knew we were wasting electricity.
It's an honor to call upon her brother Irv to represent the Simmons. Of course.
Okay. Well, I know a lot of you here today, and some of you I don't know. I'm here to celebrate my sister's life. I can tell you about her as a child. We grew up together. I'm older than she is. Not as smart as she is, but older. And we had a great childhood and life together. We were friends, always. And she liked to tell people that we never had an argument in our lives. And she was right, because I always did what she wanted me to. I know her longer than anybody here because we were children together. And we had this great childhood, great parents, wonderful brother who's gone. And I will never forget her. We had many lunches together as adults, celebrated birthdays. We loved Chinese food, and we would meet and eat, and we liked to speak Yiddish to each other. We learned it as children from our parents, and Annette and I spoke Yiddish to each other frequently. When she would call me, she would start with the Yiddish, and it was great. It was fun, and I loved it. When we were children, she refused to go to bed before I did. So my mother devised a plan whereby she would spread newspapers on my bed, under the covers, and I would get into bed fully clothed, Annette would come in and see that I was there asleep. She would go to bed. I would then jump out of bed and go out to play with my friends. And we did this on a regular basis. And you know, Annette never found out until she graduated from UCLA, which was pretty good, you know. You know, when she was a kid, she had the chicken pox. So I would go to a movie, and then I'd come home, go into her bedroom, and I would take like an hour and a half movie and make an Academy Award 3-hour picture out of it with tears. She would lay there crying like a baby. And my mother was freaking out because she thought I would get the chicken pox. And I didn't care, I just had to go with my movies. Well, I did get the chicken pox. And I got it 3 times as bad as she did. I still have the pock marks in my face to prove it. But I really embellished those movies, I loved them. I was a director, producer. It was fabulous, it was great. And of course, she was a perfect foil, you know? She loved that. We had a summer cottage near the city of Winnipeg. By the way, we were from Winnipeg, Canada. And we had a summer cottage near the city. And we used to spend our summers there. My parents owned the cottage with our dear friends, the Backlunds. Lila, who many of you, I'm sure, knew, was one of the members of the group, and we spent our summer vacations in this cottage at the beach, having just a fabulous time, all of us children. And so the beach was always in our hearts and in our minds. We never got over Winnipeg Beach. You know, Annette had a wonderful childhood. She was a great student, extremely smart academically. We went to the same high school, and we were in the high school at the same time, unfortunately for me, because every teacher that we had would take me to task and ask me why I couldn't be as smart as my sister, and they would ask me that in front of the entire class, and that was really embarrassing. But that girl, I mean, you know, I couldn't kick her out of the school, so I had to put up with that. She was a brilliant student, had no difficulty getting into UCLA, and the way that came about was that my mother and dad were visiting the Backlunds in California during the winter, 45 degrees below zero. And they're driving through the countryside and the fields and the cows grazing and the orange trees. And my mother looked around and she said to my dad, "Oscar, I would rather be a cow here than a person in Winnipeg." Well, when my dad, and that is true, by the way, I'm not making any of this up. When my dad heard that, he immediately started making plans to move to California. That was really why my mother instigated our move to California. When we realized that we were going to move, Annette applied to UCLA before we moved. She applied to UCLA, was accepted, and left us probably 2 or 3 months early to attend school. And we came along at a later date. that is how we wound up in California in 1949, which is when we came. So we were all close as children, and my children, they're all here. Rhonda, my oldest daughter, Tracy, Jeff, Jolene, Summer, coming from Northern California to New York, all the way to Los Angeles to be here celebrating my sister's life, the great life that she had. We're here to say goodbye to our beloved sister and aunt. And for me, ich will dir sehen noch einmal mein Teil und Schwester. Thank you. Is anybody interested in what I said?
Yes.
Okay. I said in Yiddish, I said, I will see you again, my darling sister. Thank you.
It's an honor to call up her son, Mark. Well, as you know, I'm Mark Rayman, and for those of you who don't know me, I'm Annette Rayman's son and Irv's nephew. I'll never be able to speak as well as my uncle. I stand before you today to speak of my mother, not on behalf of myself, but on behalf of her parents, her siblings, her children, her grandchildren, her in-laws, cousins, aunts, uncles, nieces, nephews, extended family, friends for 80 years, newfound friends, as well as acquaintances. I speak for and to everyone who has ever known her and everyone else who never had the chance. I want to thank my sisters and all of the friends and family who contributed to this story. At the minimum, I hope that you will learn something new about my mother that you never knew before. Perhaps have a laugh or rekindle a fond memory. At the best, her neshama, her spirit, will impact someone here and perhaps more to become a better person and make a difference in this world and in the lives of others. Annette Rayman, known to her mother as Chanala, to my father sometimes as Chanala or Annette, was born on July 27th, 1932, 86 years ago, to Oscar and Sadie Schiffman in Winnipeg, Canada. She was Sadie's third and last child, the first two having been sons, who I must say she loved equally and dearly. Having said that, Sadie really wanted to have a little girl. And as the story goes, which she told to me herself, when my mom was first delivered, she said to Oscar, "Oscar, go out in the street and tell everybody Sadie Schiffman's had a girl, Sadie Schiffman's had a girl." She was so excited. I heard that story many times. My mother was the apple of Sadie's eye.
She loved her dearly. She dressed her up in cute little outfits and grew her hair out into wide, curly ringlets that hung down to her shoulders. She doted on her, as she did all her children, of whom she was so proud, and raised them nearly single-handedly. You see, my mother's father, Oscar, was a cattle buyer and was often gone for weeks on end. And he was often in the countryside, leaving Sadie to do much of the child rearing. Of course, when Oscar returned home, there was a big celebration. Everybody piled in the bed. They had a good time. He brought home some things he wasn't supposed to bring home. And it was, we can't talk about that though, but it was a very special time that they did share as a family. Now, Sadie was not particularly educated, having not gone past the 6th grade. She was hustled out of Russia to escape the war, and she came here determined to have a better life. She never saw her mother again. Her mother had to stay back in Russia. Sadie spoke Russian, Yiddish, as well as English. She was fiercely proud of her heritage and enrolled her children in a Jewish parochial school where half the day their lessons were in Yiddish and half were in English. My mom, Annette, learned to read, write, and speak both languages fluently. She attended the school through the 1st through the 7th grade and stayed with the same group of 12 kids the entire time. During that time, she established some lifelong friendships. My mom also took piano lessons for 7 years and was actually quite good. Her childhood friend used to come over to the house just to listen to my mom play. And then, as an aside, years later, I even remember being a little boy and sitting on her lap thinking, how will I ever be able to do that? From the 8th through the 11th grade, my mom attended public school, where she excelled. She also joined a social group at the local Y. In those times, the Y was the center of activity on the weekends, and multiple groups known as clubs would form. My mom came together with 11 other girls, aged 12 to 13, and formed their own club. They called themselves the Gabalots. The Gabalots stayed together from the 8th through the 11th grade. Each was known for a specific feature. Best legs, best eyebrows, funniest, and guess what my mom was? Smartest. They met every week on Saturday nights where they sat, chatted, and fooled around. While they each had different interests, one thing they all had in common is that all 12 of them were Jewish. And the other thing was that they all loved boys. There were weekend dances and get-togethers and secret meetings in my grandmother's house that I just learned about this week, where they played Spin the Bottle and 7 Minutes in Heaven. It was a time of innocence, growth, and exploration, shared memories and friendships that could never be recreated. While the Gabalots were officially together during high school, my mom remained extremely close with several of them, but she kept in touch with all of them. They would go on to have reunions in their mid-50s, and again in 2011, 69 years after forming the group. During high school, Mom excelled academically, and she also dated the star of the football team. When asked what he saw in her, he replied, she was smart. She played it cool initially and didn't want to be involved with him, but eventually he won her heart over. And they spent a considerable amount of time together over the next couple of years. But eventually, things had to move on. I will say this though, she did tell me a story of what happened in the stands. Apparently she loved to go to his football games. And she had her own cheer that she did, which went something like this. Alabama, Alabama, Alabama nagel, lox and bagel, ishkas, pishkas, hit him in the kishkas, hocus pocus, try and choke us, go Tech! In 1949, at the age of 17, after finishing high school, my mom moved with her family to Los Angeles, where she attended UCLA. She lived at the same home with her parents on Colgate Avenue and commuted to school. She joined a sorority and majored in sociology. She received her Bachelor of Arts and graduated in 4 years. Now, Annette's mother, Sadie, used to get their clothes cleaned at the local dry cleaners. And it seems this person who worked at the cleaners was a bit of what we call a yenta, a matchmaker. She had another customer named Betty. And Betty had a young son. So somehow, my mom's number was passed from Sadie to the dry cleaners to Betty and made its way to the hands of Elmore. And wouldn't you know it, Elmore gave her a call. They met at a carnation store and they had a cup of coffee. He asked her out for the following Saturday night. But she confessed that she already had a date that night. But that she'd come back early and go out with him. So Saturday night came. Sadie and Oscar were having a poker party at the house with another couple. They saw Annette go out with a boy. Then she saw her come home. And soon they saw her leave with another boy. From what I'm told, Sadie and Oscar were a bit embarrassed about the appearance of things. In any event, when my mom came home, she told her parents that she's not in love with this guy, but one day she was going to marry him. Early on, she learned that he played bridge and asked him to teach her. He said, "If we're still dating in 6 months, I'll teach you." The months passed quickly, and before long, they were playing bridge and falling in love. They shared many things in common: intelligence, family values, faith, an adventurous spirit, and perhaps most importantly, a sense of humor. One day they held a party for their friends where they distributed fake newspapers with the lead article announcing their engagement. It was a wonderful surprise for everyone, and it started the countdown to their marriage. Within a short time, my father was accepted to medical school. My mother continued to work as a legal secretary and helped put him through school. Soon they were married. My mother quit her job, and my dad went into practice, and they started having children. My mom gave birth to 3 children, myself, Leslie, and Lori, within a 5-year span. We moved from an apartment to a starter house, and then eventually my parents built their dream home in Whittier with a pool in the backyard and a beautiful view of downtown Los Angeles. Who designed the floor plan for the house? My mother. Now I can tell you, from a kid's perspective, life with Annette Rayman and with our father Hal was pretty awesome. She was an incredible mother. She did everything for us. She bought us clothes, made our breakfasts, packed our lunches, took us to school, and tended to all the household duties while we were gone. And then she picked us up from school and got us to wherever we needed to be, whether that be Girl Scouts, Cub Scouts, baseball, tennis, ballet, Hebrew school, a ball game. Wherever we needed to be, Mom made it happen. If the house needed decorating for the holidays, Mom got it done. She ran the house and helped us all with our lives. And she truly loved doing it. She was incredible. She was also an amazing cook. Well, not always. According to my dad, when they first got married, she didn't know how to boil water. But like everything she did, she was determined to get good at it, so she took cooking lessons. And she did get good. By the time we 3 kids were out of baby food, on any given night, we might be eating Italian, Mexican, Chinese food, French, all prepared by Mom. The weekend brunches were also typically amazing, with eggs, hash browns, and a meat which will go unnamed, as well as, because my grandma Casey was kosher, we can't talk about it. There was French toast and pancake sandwiches. You name it, she made it. Everything from my mom's kitchen was delicious, especially the Jewish food. I will never forget her chicken soup, blintzes, and especially the latkes. Beyond being a chauffeur and a chef, my mom had so many other talents. She could sew and was always fixing holes in my pants or sewing on patches on our scout uniforms. She was a great writer and helped us many a time to write our own papers. Sometimes we were not sure if we were the ones who wrote it. She was also a fast typist, so after she wrote our papers, she would type them up. No wonder I got good grades. When it was time to leave the nest, she even typed up my applications for college. And later, my applications to medical school. Beyond all the logistical things, Mom was also incredibly nurturing. Hers was the soft touch that we craved when we were ill, even though Dad was a doctor. She was the shoulder to cry on when we were upset, or the voice of reason to help us sort through our personal problems. We had an amazing mom, but she wasn't just a mom. She was an incredible wife. She always made sure that Dad's needs were met. Dinner was always on the table. The refrigerator and the pantry remained stocked and full, and plenty of time was allotted for Dad to get out and play golf and cards with the boys. And when it was time for Dad to take one of us kids to a Lakers game or a Rams game, Mom always had sandwiches made in advance so we can enjoy them at the game. Dad also had physical limitations, as he had a bad hip. Mom was always very careful to choose activities in which Dad could participate, as he couldn't run. So she never took up skiing, and she tried to avoid sports where running was involved. When not tending to the personal needs of Dad and the kids, Mom had a very busy social life. She had her own personal activities, as well as those she shared with Dad. She kept a calendar which was packed. They joined a country club. With the women, Mom played golf on Tuesday mornings and was also in a women's doubles tennis league. She also enjoyed volunteer work with a charity called Child Guidance and was a member of B'nai B'rith and Hadassah. And when it came to socializing with Dad, they both learned to strike a balance. You see, Dad really liked sports, and Mom liked the theater. So, as was always their strategy in their marriage, they compromised. They had regular subscriptions to concerts and the theater, and the opera, and they also attended Lakers and Ram games together. Although I will tell you that my mom was known to bring a bag of magazines to the Ram games. Mom and Dad also enjoyed playing golf together, which they sometimes did on Thursday afternoons and at other times on the weekends. And they had a regular bridge game on Thursday nights, which they themselves started at the Friendly Hills Country Club in the 1970s, and which runs to this day. Beyond all of this, Mom was always making plans with friends. There were so many get-togethers, card games at the house, birthday parties, bar mitzvahs, dinner parties, theme parties, random parties, party parties. Come to think of it, it seems like they were always partying. It was a work hard, play hard philosophy that they lived by. And equally important was time spent with the rest of the family. In fact, probably my mom's greatest joy was spending time with the entire extended family at Passover, Rosh Hashanah, the high holidays, and Thanksgiving with all the grandparents, children and grandchildren, aunts and uncles, nieces and nephews, and anyone else who might join us for that matter, family or not. They all held a special place in her heart and were treated with dignity and respect. Throughout their marriage, my parents always made it a point to travel. They started humbly. Their honeymoon consisted of a trip to Disneyland during its very first year, and a short period of time in Las Vegas. When the kids were out of diapers, they started going up to Lake Arrowhead, where we rented a 4-story house for the weekend. Actually, it was a whole week. And we shared that with both family and friends. It was a magical time, cherished by all. You should have seen my mom on water skis. She was pretty good. Years later, they bought a house in Lake Arrowhead, which they enjoyed for quite some time until my dad could no longer go up. But that spurred me to get a house in Lake Arrowhead much later. My parents traveled near and far, sometimes alone, other times with friends, and occasionally they took us kids along. They covered much of the world, traveling all over North America, Mexico, the Caribbean, Europe, Russia, Africa, the Middle East, the Far East, Australia, New Zealand. And they even bought a timeshare in Puerto Vallarta, to which they traveled annually and made many friends. And of course, there were trips to their favorite place in the world, Hawaii. They truly embraced their time together. As we 3 kids got older, my mom needed an outlet other than social activities. She needed to do something more with her life. In all truth, she could have gone to law school, as 2 of her friends had done. She even flirted with the idea, but she decided against it, as she knew that it might come between her and the many activities that she shared with Dad. So instead, she started a business with a friend called the Gold Bug, selling jewelry at parties. And after this got old, she became a travel agent, which she practiced for 35 years. She planned many an amazing trip down to the tiniest detail and had many returning customers, not to mention the many trips she planned for family and friends. By the way, the last trip that she planned will be taking place next week when Lori and her family go to Africa. While all this was going on, the time came for the kids to go off to college. I can still remember the day my mom was crying when I left UCLA. Sorry. She loved having a full house, and seeing us leave one by one was undoubtedly hard. But don't you worry, she kept busy. Life was short, and she simply amped up all of her other activities to fill the time. But rest assured, we were back on weekends to enjoy the loving place that we called home and Mom's amazing cooking. Over time, Mom and Dad put all 3 of us through college, sacrificing quite a bit to get us through. They had to cut back on travel, sell off their Laker tickets, and keep their expenses down. But they did it. They got us through it, and none of us were ever left with debt related to room, board, or tuition. We were very lucky. Of course, life wasn't always perfect. My dad had his health issues. 3 hip surgeries, diverticulitis, open heart surgery. My mom was always there by his side. And then in college, Lori was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. She went through a series of painful tests and treatments. It was a very difficult time, but she survived, again, with Mom there to comfort and nurture her through those very difficult times. One day, however, a challenge was posed that they would not be able to conquer. In 1991, at the age of 63, my father was diagnosed with metastatic prostate cancer. The news was devastating. My father vowed to fight, and fight he did, with Mom close by his side. It was a difficult, painful battle with many challenges along the way. Over time, my mom helplessly watched as her husband's health slipped away. There was so much that she needed to do for him, both physically and emotionally, but was always by his side. He eventually succumbed to his disease in 1996. It was a tremendous loss. 40 of the best years of my mother's life. They had an incredible ride and packed in a great deal in their time together. It ended far too soon. From an emotional standpoint, it was not easy for my mom to recover. But she had no choice. She had to move on. So, with incredible strength and determination, my mother redefined her life. She now lived alone. In the early years, around the time Dad passed, Mom was there to support her aging mother, who she was able to enjoy until she passed in 2000. In addition, 3 grandchildren were born: Tyler, Emily, and Jake. She adored those grandchildren and spent as much time as she could with them. She babysat them when needed, took them places, and gave them an abundance of love and support. When Lori, Steve, and the kids moved to Connecticut, it just became a longer commute for my mom as she continued to attend as many of their milestones, performances, and events as she could. In 2010, a 4th grandchild, Eli, was born. He was the apple of her eye. And she shifted her attention to him, coming over on many weekends to spend time with him. The family gatherings continued for many years at my mom's home, with Passover and many a celebration still being there. My own wedding to Dee Dee was held at my mom's house in 2005. Over all the years since my father passed, my mom was always there for me and my siblings. When it came to relationships, she was particularly supportive. She was accepting and loving of my first wife, Natalie. And after we divorced, when I needed a place to stay, where do you think I went? At age 41, I was back living with my mom, where I stayed with Tyler and our 2 dogs for nearly a year and a half. This was a magical time, let me tell you. And it was hard to leave. To this day, my mom still has a plaque on the door that says Tyler in the room where he slept. While Tyler and I left, the 2 dogs remained, and my mom took care of them until their dying day. She was always taking care of someone. When Lori married Steve, it was a no-brainer. After all, Steve was a lot like my dad. And you know how my mom felt about my dad. Steve and my mom always had a very special relationship, and that's something that I think he's going to miss. Leslie had a number of long-term relationships. While she never married, they have been very important to her, and Mom has always been kind and loving towards them. As you all probably know, I remarried to a wonderful woman named Dee Dee. My mom has treated Dee Dee like a daughter, and they have an amazing relationship. They talked frequently on the phone, and to Dee Dee, she was like a second mom. They were so close that my mom and I often joked. Actually, she joked, I didn't joke. She said that if she had to pick between the 2 of us, she don't know which one she's going to choose. Aside from relationships, Mom helped us considerably financially. She made us loans for investments in real estate. She helped Leslie with her condo. She gave me money to start my practice. She paid for flights for her family to get them to come see her. She bought us dinners, too many dinners. She insisted on paying for many things to help ease the burden of her children. She was incredibly generous with us. But it was the emotional support and the nurturing that stood out beyond anything. She was there for my sister Lori, time and again as she battled both thyroid and breast cancer, and made multiple trips to the East Coast to be by her side. She was always there for my sister Leslie for whatever support she may need, whatever questions she may have. And she was always there for me. Wherever she was needed, that's where she went. All of us kids stayed very close to our mom over the years, and if we didn't speak to her every day on the phone, it was nearly that. She was our voice of reason, our sounding board, the one we went to for advice, the one who we wanted to make proud. I'll tell you now, all of this will be sorely missed. Beyond family, she continued to nurture and maintain all of the friendships that she had previously established. She would go to lunch with one group of friends, dinner with another, and the theater on the weekends, often joining other couples in dinners and events as a third or a fifth wheel. It didn't matter to her or them. They still enjoyed each other's company, and that's all that mattered. Some would say that she was the glue that held some of these groups together. As for what she did in her free time, it was really quite interesting. Somehow she developed a passion for sporting events. It was as if she had taken over for Dad. She began to read the sports section daily, even up to this last weekend. She was a devoted fan of the Lakers and, unfortunately, of UCLA football and basketball. She was at Kobe's final game when he scored 60 points. She went to many UCLA SC football games, some of which UCLA actually won. She knew so much about sports, and in particular basketball, that it was incredible as she sent out text messages frequently to my son Tyler, to Troy, to my mom, to anyone about what's going on in the world of basketball. Did I mention Jeff? You would also send Jeff texts as well too, is that correct? Yeah. In the years since my father passed, my mom also took her bridge game to the next level. She continued to play her Thursday night games and also played in regional tournaments throughout Southern California with some very good players. And eventually she accumulated enough master points from high finishes to attain the status of life master. A number of years ago, she found a consistent Thursday night partner who is now 90 years old. The day after they played, I would ask her on the phone, "How did you do last night?" And she would inevitably say that she came in first, or at worst, second. So a couple of years ago, I decided I'd take up bridge so that I could be able to spend some special time with my mom. Soon I began to play with her on Thursday nights. It was a 2-hour drive to get there in traffic, but it was worth it. I learned a lot. I learned that she had a brilliant mind to remember cards, and that I did not. We rarely came in first. But we shared some time together that I will treasure forever. I know one thing, that Thursday night group won't be the same without my mom. In addition to everything else she's done, up until the last 9 months, my mom continued to work as a travel agent. I told you about Steve and Lori's trip. I hope you guys have an amazing time out there. I myself am at a loss. I'm not sure who will be planning our trips in the future. In the last 20 plus years, my mother traveled the world with family and friends to Alaska, where she took the entire family on a cruise for her 75th birthday, Emily's bat mitzvah in Israel, Jake's bar mitzvah in Prague and Budapest, as well as trips to Canada, Hawaii, Cabo San Lucas, the Caribbean, Costa Rica, Panama, Playa del Carmen, Brazil, Argentina, Australia, New Zealand, Italy, and China. My dad may have died, but my mom kept living. In addition to long-distance travel, she made multiple trips every winter to Palm Springs to visit and stay with her childhood friends from Winnipeg. And every year she returned in February to share time in Puerto Vallarta, where her timeshare was, and she had certain friends that she would go down there and see every year and hang out with. On the weekends in the summer, she would travel with my family up to our summer home in Lake Arrowhead. That unless she had a play to go to down the hill, which she had frequently. She never stopped going. She drove her friends places until she was 85 years old. She was amazing. And then, last year, in the blink of an eye, everything changed. It was September the 19th, the day after Yom Kippur, the day where they actually uttered the words in prayer for the upcoming year, "Who shall live and who shall die?" That my mom got the news, metastatic cancer to the lungs. Her life and the lives of those around her would never be the same. Her children, family, and friends were devastated. There was an outpouring of love and support from everyone. But unfortunately, no amount of love was going to change the prognosis. My mother was terminal. When the cancer was first diagnosed, tests showed that it was growing fast. 6 weeks away, we didn't even know if she was going to make it to Thanksgiving. So we got to work. A flurry of activity ensued. A port was put in her chest, and she started chemotherapy. The whole family came out for Thanksgiving, thinking that this would be the last time we'd see her. We watched, and we waited, and we watched her fight. Our mother fought a courageous battle. After she made it to Thanksgiving, the family took turns caring for our mom. I want to thank my sister Lori and her wonderful husband Steve, who dropped everything and came out from Connecticut for weeks to months at a time to care for my mom at her house. Lori and Steve had to try to accomplish their work from 3,000 miles away while simultaneously caring for my mom, taking her to doctor appointments, and getting her through chemotherapy. In addition, Lori took her to have her nails and hair done, organized her house, and perhaps most importantly, went through and organized all of my mom's pictures with her as she was able to reflect back on so much of her life. When Lori and Steve were back in Connecticut, Mom stayed at my house, where she was attended to by my wonderful mother-in-law, Magdalena, and my wife, Dee Dee. They both worked very hard to help my mom. For many weeks, Magdalena attended to her throughout much of the day, and for that I will be eternally grateful. As for Dee Dee, well, she had to juggle work, Eli's school, and Eli's activities, with numerous doctor visits in the daytime to make sure that my mom got the care that she needed. So thank you, Dee Dee, and thank you, Mimi. But you know what? Everyone who cared for my mom did so without thought. Why? Because that's the same thing she always did for us, and countless others. She would have done the same for us if she could. When Dee Dee's mom went back to Bulgaria, during the last 6 weeks of my mom's life, we engaged the services of 2 caretakers named Jem and Jeff. They were kind, nurturing, and loving, both having been nurses back in the Philippines. I would like to take a moment to express my gratitude for all the devotion that they provided to my mom. And it wasn't just about the family members and caretakers that took care of and helped my mom on a daily basis. It was so many of you. There were countless calls from family members and friends. So many of you visited, brought over food, and showed your love and respect. Too many of you to list or to thank individually at this moment. But you know who you are, and we thank you for being there for my mom. Amazingly, for many months my mother lived. The cancer actually did respond to chemotherapy, but the treatments took a toll on her body. My mom fought hard. She continued to get out to an occasional movie, a dinner, and played bridge on most Thursday nights. Not only did she make it to Thanksgiving, she made it to Hanukkah, past Christmas, and New Year's, and just kept going. She made it to all 3 of her kids' birthdays, spaced from November to April. Soon it was Passover, and there she was, making the broth for the chicken soup and matzah bread the next day. But Mom got progressively weaker with time, and her body seemed to be wearing out. While the cancer was responding, we all knew that eventually the end would come. Last week, my mom played bridge for the last time. You know what? She played pretty well. The next day, we left for Lake Arrowhead. She had a beautiful weekend in the mountains with us and our good friends, the Benders. There was a short ride on the boat, bundled up like an Eskimo. There was time with friends and time with family, just like she would have wanted it. A card game on Sunday. She even danced a bit as she was escorted across the kitchen floor. Under the circumstances, it was a beautiful couple of days. But sometime late Sunday afternoon, I looked across at her from the kitchen as she sat at the dining room table. She looked unhappy. She looked tired. She looked sad. I'm thinking that maybe something inside of her was telling her that it was time to go. Sunday night, she went to bed for the last time. In the morning, she was found short of breath, and the paramedics were called. We took her to the emergency room at St. Bernardine's. She had a face mask on and was in and out of consciousness. At one point, little Eli was allowed into the ER. He came up to her and we were able to arouse her. He said, "I love you, Grandma." And she replied, "I love you too." I'd like to think that she was saying that not just to Eli, but for everyone else who loved her as well. That evening, my mom's heart stopped beating. Her body had given up. The battle was over. It was time to rest. She fought hard, harder than most of us thought she was capable, and she had given it her all. She was back with her husband, Elle, and her brother, Sidney, her parents, Sadie and Oscar, and all her good friends who had preceded her. A couple of nights ago, while preparing for today, my sisters, Leslie and Lori, brother-in-law Steve, and wife Dee Dee, gathered in my mom's family room, and we tried to pick and choose some photos to display at today's service and reception. There were boxes of literally thousands of loose pictures from which to choose, spanning the entirety of my mom's life. The pictures had been organized to a considerable degree over the last few months through the tireless efforts by Lori with my mom. As I looked at the photos, I was amazed at what I saw. She had done so much and been so many places in her life. A wonderful upbringing in an innocent time. Loving parents, Sadie and Oscar. Two brothers, Sidney and Irv, who were such a big part of her life. My father's sister, Rhoda. Spouses, Fran, Maria, and Roland. Nieces, Rhonda, Lisa, Tracy, Jolene, and Summer. Nephews, Michael, Jeff, Dirk, Ari, and Dove. Great nieces, Sydney and Stella. Jolene's husband, Danny. Tracy's loving Boris. Spouses, ex-spouses, and significant others who were all part of the rich fabric of my mother's life. She had a unique relationship with each of them, and she loved them all. There were pictures of extended family across the country and all over the world. There was Eva and Raya and Arkady and Tanya and Misha and Rita and Julia and Anya and Zenobia and Marina and all of their offspring. And there were pictures of friends spanning 80 plus years from kindergarten to the very present. There were too many friends to try to list here. And if I were to try, my mother would get angry for fear that I was going to leave someone out. So I'm not going to mention any of your names. There were pictures of my mom as a baby, as a child, as a Gabelette, a sorority girl, and so many pictures of her with her beloved Elle, pictures with her children, and perhaps most importantly to her, pictures of her grandchildren, Tyler, Emily, Jake, and Eli. In the last few days, as we looked at all of our pictures, as well as pictures, emails, Facebook posts, and texts, it became abundantly clear to me my mother had lived a very full and meaningful life. She had been many. Mom was someone who you could always come to for advice, who was intuitive, knowledgeable, and respectful of all people. She seemed to always know the right things to do or say. She will also be remembered for her generosity. Mom would give you the shirt off her back. This started as a little girl. One of her childhood friends, who was very poor, had to wear her older brother's gachis, which are underwear, to school. And she told me the story of how she was touched because my mom was willing to take off her leggings and let her wear them out at recess. She gave her time to so many people. At parties, she was the first one in the kitchen to help out, and often the last one to leave. She brought people over to this country to help them start a new life. She bought them silverware. She took in family into her own home. She gave financial support to others. She put my dad through medical school, her children through college, and contributed annually to all her grandchildren's college savings plans. She made sure that everyone was looked after and honored. And she constantly reminded us to call each other on their birthdays and to always include a card. She'll be remembered for her dedication to family. She was always there in time of need for any member of the family, not just her children. And she was a fierce believer in keeping the family together. She made sure we celebrated all of the holidays with as much of the family as possible, and usually celebrated everybody's birthdays and anniversaries and graduations as well. Undoubtedly, she will want this to continue. Mom valued connection with friends, and she accepted them for who they were. She was always on the phone. In fact, my father once suggested that she should have the phone surgically attached to her ear for convenience. She made friends very easily, and she met them in all sorts of places. Most of the people who are her friends have been there since the first time that she met them, and many of you are here today. Unfortunately, many are no longer with us or are too sick to come. If Mom were here today, she would say that she misses the friends who are not here and is so grateful for those who were able to come. But she would not want to make anyone feel bad about not being able to make it. And she for sure would not want me to start mentioning any names for sure that I would leave someone out. Suffice it to say, she treated all of her friends equally. She made friends in many places and spans from all walks of life, from her childhood and adolescence through her years of marriage with my father, where they connected with people from the temple, work, and the club. She remained friends with those who started as household helpers, some of whom went on to build their own wonderful lives. She made an amazing relationship with her apartment manager and the woman who did her hair. She made friends with inmates who she visited in prison. My mom had circles of friends in Whittier, on the west side, and in the valley. She had friends across the country and in Canada, people she met from Mexico, France, and countless other places. Her circle was ever expanding, and she continued to grow new relationships even until the last years of her life. I have no doubt she will be missed by many of you. Mom also had a sense of humor. I don't think I've touched upon this enough, and there's just no way that I can possibly recapture it here, but just to say she was pretty damn funny. Here are a couple of excerpts from text messages that she recently had with one of her closest friends. Mom, I just came back from a fortune teller, and she said I should have nothing to do with you. You are the source of all my problems. And then in parentheses, you know I'm kidding, of course. I love you very much. The friend replied, F you. I mean, F the fortune teller. This person also told me a story. For decades, immediately after leaving one another's homes, we would almost instantly call and profusely thank whoever was the host for such a wonderful hospitality, whereupon the other would become outraged that it took so long to make the call and say thank you. This last visit was no different. This is the text exchange that occurred after their last visit on March the 3rd. Okay, so she came to visit my mom at our house. Here's my mom texting her. Sorry it took so long to express my appreciation of your visit, but I had to go to the bathroom. Her friend responds, I'm not mad about that. It's not the walking us to the door that is hard to forgive. Seriously, I would have texted you sooner, but I forgot your name. Missing a critical accuracy. Yes. My mom replied, if I could remember it, I would provide it to you. And yes, you should be upset with me for not walking you to the door. Her friend responded, haha, seriously, you are the most fun. It's your hospitality that isn't fun at all. However, I've decided to not wait until Yom Kippur and to forgive you now. Just please take responsibility for your behavior and be more hospitable. And I love you in spite of your poor manners. My mom responded, I didn't burp or fart while you were here. That displayed great restraint and good manners. Her friend said, yes, indeed, it showed you had manners. However, it would have given me a great laugh if you had. My mom said, I love you that you haven't given up on me. Would love to see you again soon. The final thing that she said to my mom, just so you know, I always have you in my thoughts and heart, my dear friend of so many years. Love you always. In closing, I know you're grateful for that, I just want to say that I believe my mom was a guiding light for all of us. With the way she lived her life, she set an example we should all follow. With her generosity, her dedication to her friends and family, and her willingness to connect with others, her selflessness and her kindness. I hope that you leave here today feeling that your life was in some way touched by having known her. Maybe she helped you in some way. Maybe she was just great company. Someone who made you laugh. Or someone you could cry with. Someone who held your hand. Or someone whose hand you were hoping to never let go of. I know some people whose hands my mom was hoping to never let go of. And that was her grandchildren, Tyler, Emily, Jake, and Eli. I know you loved her, and I know that she loved you too, because she said so in her final words to Eli. I love you too.
Thank you to all who shared such beautiful, incredible memories, and I know those memories will continue to be shared in the coming days, weeks, and months. It was Hannah Senesh who said, there are stars whose brightness is visible on earth, although they have long burned out. They are people whose brilliance continues to light the world, though they are no longer among the living. These lights are particularly bright when the night is dark. They light the way for us all. I think we can agree Annette was that person. We look to page 18 in the books. for the traditional prayer for the departed El Malay Rachamim, please rise, page 18.
שוכן במרומי, אמצעי מנוחה נכונה, תחת כנפי השכינה, במלאות קדושים וטהורים, כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים. את נשמת חנה ריבה בת אשר וציפה, שהלכה לעולמה, בגן עדן תהא מנוחתה. אנא בעל רחמים, אז תראה בסתר כנפיך לעולמים, וצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתה. אדוני הוא נחלתה. ותנוח בשלום על משכבה, ונאמר אמן.
O God, so full of divine compassion, create peace beyond time under the protecting, all-embracing wings of your Shekhinah, of your divine presence. In the sacred and innocent heights of heaven, we as human beings can only imagine, dazzling as the brilliance of the sky, for the soul of our dear one, Annette Rayman, Chana Riva Bat Asher Betsipa, who has reached her eternal rest. Because of her deeds of compassion and loving kindness, may she be allowed to enter into the Garden of Eden. May you, Adonai, the ultimate source of compassion, protect her soul under your wings forever, and may she be bound in the bond of life. In God is this soul's proper place. In this place of rest, may her soul be at peace. And together we say, Amen. You may be seated.
Thank you, Rabbi Cantor. Our services will continue to conclude in the Canaan Gardens interment site. As the casket passes your row, I will invite everyone to rise and exit the chapel and return to their vehicles and follow in procession behind the funeral coach to the interment site. For those who would like to join in concluding prayers, I invite you to bring your brown prayer booklets with you. I also would like to ask all of our guests if you would please hold your condolences for the family until all of our services are concluded this afternoon. Immediately following the conclusion of our interment service, the family has invited everyone to gather with them at Annette's home to further remember and share stories and love for her. The directions are available immediately outside of the chapel on the left as you exit. The family will also be sitting Shiva at the home of Dr. Mark Rayman, Annette's son. That will be tomorrow night at 8 p.m., Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday at 7 p.m. And that information as well is on the reverse side of the directions available outside of the chapel. At this time, I would like to call forth our casket bearers who have the honor of escorting Annette to her final resting place. As I call your names, please come forward and stand by her casket.
It was in the original text and I took it out. I took all the names out. I mean, like some of these things that are like, right, you know.
Oh, it's not my phone. Like my mom, and she's always cracking me up. My mom was sure I'm high enough to feed everybody.
Yaseh Shalom, Shalom
You can shed tears that she is gone, or you can smile because she has lived. You can close your eyes and pray that she'll come back, or you can open your eyes and see all that she has left. Your heart can be empty because you can't see her, or you can be full of the love that you shared. You can turn your back on tomorrow and live yesterday, or you can be happy for tomorrow because of yesterday. You can remember her and only that she's gone, or you can cherish her memory and let it live on. You can cry and close your mind, be empty and turn your back, or you can do what she'd want, smile, open your eyes, love, and go on. I think that poem speaks perfectly to who Annette was and what she would want from us on this day as the sun shines on our heads. I invite the mourners, the family, anyone else in mourning to rise if you're able, and to look at the beautiful words, the ancient words of our tradition, the Mourner's Kaddish, which is on page 31. These words do not speak about death, but rather about finding ways when our connection to God and others might be broken a bit. And so how do we reconnect? We reconnect through love, peace, and being together. Join in with me the words of the Mourner's Kaddish, again, page 31. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah le'alma divrach irteh ve'amlik ha'kuteh v'chayehon u'yomehon u'chayeh d'ol beit Yisrael v'adalah v'zman tari v'yimru amei yehi shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam olmei olmaya yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yipahar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh V'yitadar, v'yitalel, v'yitalal, shmei kudusha b'rimu. Le'ila mikol virpata v'shirata, tushvechata v'nechemata, da'amiran v'alma v'yimru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Oseh shalom nimroma, u'yaseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'yimru, amen. May the one who causes peace to reign in the high heavens also cause peace to descend on all of us and upon the whole world. And together we say, Amen. We're about to perform the greatest mitzvah, the greatest commandment we have in our tradition. Before we do that, I just want to say it is so good for all of us to be here together, and I know for the family to see so many of you. But our job continues in the coming days. Our role continues in the coming days to be with this family. So whatever you can do to support them during Shiva, to allow them to say these mourners' prayers and just to be there to hold them up. And I know many memories will be shared. I know it would be greatly appreciated. We look forward to seeing you. We're about to place earth onto the casket, and the rabbis call it the greatest mitzvah because we do it solely for our love of Annette. And so there are a few traditions that I encourage you to follow, and everybody is welcome to participate in this. The first is we try not to pass the shovel from hand to hand, just to show that we're not eagerly doing this, but we want to delay in doing this task. And sometimes it's hard to put the shovel back, so if you need to pass it to the next person, you'll do what is necessary. Also, the first scoop of earth is sometimes done with the back of the shovel to remember that we're doing a holy task and not everyday shoveling. And there is a custom to put 3 scoops of earth on top of the casket. Again, do what is comfortable for you, do what is right for you. I think just what our goal is in all of this is to be here to support the family and to show our love of Annette. So I invite the family to come forward first, and then anyone else who would like to follow, please do so.
Sorry for your loss, Leslie. We're here to support you.
So sorry. It's so nice to know more about Annette and who she was. I'd never known her, but I got to know who she was as a result of the eulogy. Thank you.
You're very blessed to have a wonderful mom in your life and a fantastic family. And I hope you find comfort in knowing that.
Nice to see you.
We love you.
We did too.
We love you all.
Yes.
We're going to miss Annette a lot. We truly do.
What a wonderful soul.
We're just saying how many lives she's touched and how fortunate we were to know her.
She has touched all of us forever. Truly forever. We love you, Annette.
That's her. Like the people that she can take a look at you and she knowing you, she was
Nice kids.